Hey everyone. In this lecture, we are looking at career and employment assessment. And this is one of those areas of assessment that can feel a little lighter than some of the clinical material, but it's actually connected to people's identity, mental health, relationships, finances, culture, and sense of purpose. The idea here is that work is never just work. For many people, work shapes daily routine, social connection, economic safety, family roles, self worth, stress levels, access to healthcare, and future planning. So when a client says, I hate my job, I don't know what to do, or I picked the wrong major, or I feel stuck, they're not only talking about employment, they may also be talking about grief, fear, identity, burnout, pressure, family expectations, trauma, class, disability, caregiving responsibilities, or maybe even survival. Career assessment gives counselors a way to help clients slow down and organize those questions. And I want to say this right away. Career assessments do not tell clients who they are supposed to become. They are not magic sorting hats. They don't spit out a perfect life plan. They provide a language, structure, reflection, and possibilities. And a good career assessment does not end the conversation. It starts a better one. Career assessment is used to help people understand themselves, explore options, and make decisions about work, education, and life direction. This can happen across many stages of life. A high school student may be deciding whether to attend college, pursue a trade, join the military, or enter the workforce. A college student may be questioning their major after realizing that the thing that they chose at 18 no longer fits who they're becoming at 21. An adult may be changing careers after burnout, job loss, illness, divorce, relocation, parenthood, or a shift in values. And a client in recovery may be rebuilding employment skills, exploring meaningful work, or trying to figure out what kind of work supports stability rather than undermines it. A client with a disability may be exploring work environments that support independence, access, dignity. And that's why Studs Terkel's quote fits so well here. Work is about a search for daily meaning as well as daily bread. That line captures the heart of career assessment. Work is practical. People need income, benefits, safety, structure, access to resources. That's the daily bread part. But work also touches identity, purpose, dignity, belonging, autonomy, and how a person spends their actual days. That's the daily meaning part. So career assessment is not just about asking, what job should I do? It's often about asking, how do I want to live? What do I need to be okay? What kind of environment helps me function well? And what kind of work can support both my stability and sense of self? This is why career work belongs in counseling. It connects to wellness, identity, meaning, autonomy, relationships, and social context. So before we go further, let's separate two related ideas: career assessment and employment assessment. Career assessment usually happens in counseling, education, rehabilitation, or career planning settings. The goal is to help the client understand themselves and make informed decisions. It may include interests, values, skills, abilities, personality, educational goals, life roles, and work preferences. Employment assessment is more often used by organizations. The goal is usually selection, placement, promotion, or hiring. And that may include structured interviews, work samples, job knowledge tests, personality measures, cognitive ability tests, integrity tests, job analysis, or assessment centers. So career assessment asks, what kind of work might fit this person's interest, values, abilities, and life context? An employment assessment asks, does this person have the knowledge, skills, abilities, and characteristics needed for this specific role? Both require ethical practice. Both require attention to validity, reliability, fairness, culture, and legal issues. But the counselor's role may look very different depending on the setting. So one of the easiest mistakes to make with career assessment is treating results like a verdict. A client takes an interest inventory and sees that they have high artistic and social interests. Suddenly they think, okay, well, I guess I have to become an art teacher or a therapist. Or someone scores high in realistic and investigative areas and assumes that they should become an engineer, mechanic, or forensic scientist. That's too rigid. Assessment results should be treated as clues, not commands. Frank Parsons, one of the early figures in career guidance, said, in the wise choice of a vocation, there are three broad factors: a clear understanding of yourself, knowledge of work, and true reasoning. That quote really gives us some useful structure. Career assessment is not about matching a person to a job title. It involves helping the client understand themselves, helping them learn about the realities of different kinds of work, and then helping them to reason through the fit between the two. So when the client receives assessment results, we're not saying, here's your answer. We're saying, here's information that we can think with. So think about the movie Barbie. Part of the story is about moving from an assigned identity into self-exploration. Barbie starts with the role that's been handed to her, then begins asking deeper questions about who she is and what kind of life feels meaningful. That's actually a decent metaphor for career counseling. A career assessment should not lock somebody into a box. It should help them notice patterns, ask better questions, and consider options that they may not have seen before. And the counselor's job is to hold results with curiosity. We might ask, what parts of this feel accurate? What surprised you? What feels completely wrong? What does this result leave out? What do you know about the actual day-to-day reality of this career? How does it fit with your actual experience of work, school, family, money, and daily life? And that last question does really matter. A career option can look great on paper and feel terrible in the body. So when we use career assessments, we're helping clients connect three things: who they are, what the world of work actually requires, and how they want to reason through their next step. And that is exploration, not prescription. A career assessment often includes several categories of information. Each category gives us a different piece of the picture. The major areas that we're focusing on today are interests, work values, personality and work style, abilities and skills, career development and readiness, interviews, and combined assessment systems. Interests tell us what the person tends to enjoy, prefer, or feel drawn towards. Work values tells us what a person needs from work in order to feel satisfied, supported, and aligned. Personality and work style may help us understand patterns in communication, preferences, stress response, collaboration, leadership, structure, and work environment fit. Abilities and skills tell us something about current strengths, learned competencies, and possible areas for future development. Career development and readiness measures may help us understand decision-making, barriers, career maturity, confidence, and how prepared a client feels to take the next steps. Interviews give context, story, lived experience, family expectations, barriers, and meaning. Combined assessment systems bring several of those areas together, often linking client responses to occupational information and possible career paths. The big idea is this: no single tool tells us the whole story. Career assessment works best when counselors combine assessment results with conversation, context, and client meaning. Interest inventories are probably the most familiar form of career assessment. They measure what somebody likes, dislikes, prefers, or feels drawn towards, and then compare those interests to career fields, educational paths, or occupational groups. These tools differ in format and depth, cost, and setting, but they share a similar purpose: helping clients notice a pattern in what they enjoy, prefer, or feel drawn toward. The goal is not to predict success perfectly. The goal is to help clients explore patterns. A student who loves animals, biology, problem solving, and working outdoors might explore veterinary science, wildlife biology, conservation, animal training, or environmental education. A client who enjoys storytelling, advocacy, psychology, and working with people might explore counseling, teaching, social work, law, writing, nonprofit work, or public health. But here's the catch: interest does not equal skill. I may be interested in becoming an Olympic gymnast. That does not mean that my body, training, history, age, coordination, or general lack of flipping ability will support that career path. And that sounds ridiculous, but clients do this all the time in a less obvious way. Someone may love the idea of being a therapist, but hate emotional intensity. Somebody may love the idea of being a chef, but struggle with the pace, the heat, the hours, the hierarchy of professional kitchens. Someone may love true crime podcasts and think that they want to work in forensic psychology, but then realize that they do not want daily exposure to violence, court systems, or the documentation required. Career counseling helps clients figure out the fantasy against the lived reality. The main counseling task is simply not to administer a tool and hand over a list of careers. The task is to help clients understand what the results mean in context of their life. Many of these interest inventories are connected to broader theories of career choice. One of the most influential is Holland's RIASEC model, which is what we're going to look at next. RIASEC is not one specific test, but it's a way of organizing interests into 6 broad areas so that clients can better understand their patterns. So RIASEC stands for realistic, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. These are interest areas, and people often have a pattern across several of them. Realistic involves working with tools, machines, animals, plants, physical materials, or hands-on tasks. Investigative interests involve research, analysis, science, ideas, and problem solving. Artistic interests involve creativity, expression, design, writing, performance, and originality. Social interests involve helping, teaching, counseling, training, and supporting others. Enterprising interests involve leading, persuading, selling, organizing people, entrepreneurship, and influence. Conventional interests involve structure, data, organization, systems, records, accuracy, and clear procedures. Most people are not only one thing. A person may have a code like AIS, which could point towards artistic, investigative, and social environments, and that could connect to art therapy, design research, museum education, counseling, teaching, UX research, or community arts programming. That's where I want you to think beyond job titles. RASIC is less about saying, you're artistic, so become an artist. It's more about asking, what kinds of activities, environments, and problems tend to pull your attention? So let's make this a little less abstract. Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation would probably score high in social, enterprising, and conventional. She loves helping people, organizing systems, creating binders, leading projects, advocating for public services, and making government work better. Sydney from The Bear might show artistic, investigative, and enterprising interests. But she's creative, precise, curious, ambitious, and interested in building something excellent. But her career satisfaction is not only about cooking, it's also about power, mentorship, recognition, working conditions, leadership, and burnout. Wednesday might be investigative and artistic. She's drawn to mystery, writing, analysis, and the strange little corners of human behavior. Would she enjoy a traditional customer service job? Probably not. Would she enjoy forensic psychology, investigative writing, archival research, or criminal psychology? Maybe. And there's also Ted Lasso, who I didn't put on the slide, but he is strongly social and enterprising. He leads through relationships, motivation, team building, and belief. But even Ted's story reminds us that being good at helping people does not protect somebody from anxiety, grief, or emotional strain. These pop culture examples are fun, and I think that they help us remember that career fit is not just a list of tasks. It's a person in an environment. So interest inventories are useful, but they do have limits. First, interests can change over time. A 16-year-old, 26-year-old, and 46-year-old may answer career questions differently because they have had different exposure, responsibility, losses, opportunities, and needs. Second, people can only express interest in what they know exists. If a client has never been exposed to certain careers, they might not endorse interest in them. This matters for students from under-resourced schools, first-generation college students, immigrants, people from rural communities, or anyone whose career imagination has been limited by access. Third, sociocultural expectations shape interest. Gender roles, family pressure, class expectations, disability, stigma, religious values, and community norms can all shape what a client believes is acceptable, possible, or for people like me. Fourth, interests can reflect fantasy. Someone may love the idea of a job, but not the actual daily tasks. This is the I want to own a bakery because I like baking cookies on Sunday problem. Owning a bakery involves finances, inventory, early mornings, payroll, food safety, customer complaints, and constant decision-making. The fantasy is cupcakes. The job is spreadsheets. Fifth, interest does not equal ability. Being interested in medicine does not automatically mean somebody has the academic preparation, stress tolerance, financial access, or desire for the training path. As counselors, we help clients hold interest with honesty and compassion. So let's move into work values. Work values are the qualities of a job or work environment that matter to a person's satisfaction. So some examples include income, security, prestige, autonomy, creativity, variety, routine, helping others, leadership, recognition. The list goes on and on and on. Values are huge. A client may have the ability and interest to work in a certain field, but if the work violates their value system, they may feel burnout or even trapped. So for example, somebody may be very skilled at sales, but hate pressure-based persuasion. Someone may be great in healthcare, but struggle in systems where productivity is valued over patient connection. Somebody may be a talented clinician, but feel miserable in a setting where they have no autonomy or documentation demands crowd out meaningful care. Or think about somebody like this, which is actually a lot of clients that are struggling right now working in the tech field. They might be so excellent at creative UX, UI work, skilled at design thinking, user experience, visual problem solving, building tools that people actually want to use. And on paper, working in AI might look like a perfect fit because it might use creativity, technical skills, and ability to manage how people interact with systems, plus it's a growing field. But if this client has serious values or ethical concerns about how AI is being developed or used, that perfect fit can start to feel wrong. They may not be burned out because they lack skill. They may be burned out because the work is asking them to participate in something that conflicts with their values. And this is why values matter. A person can be good at a job, and still feel worn down if the work environment, mission, ethics, or expectations do not fit who they are. So the conversation can move from what can you do to what do you need your work to honor about you? So here's a simple example. Imagine two clients with similar skills and interests. Both enjoy helping people, both are organized, and both are good communicators. Client A values stability, benefits, routine, and predictable hours. Client B values autonomy, creativity, variety, and flexible scheduling. They might both be drawn to counseling, but they may thrive in different settings. Client A may prefer a hospital, school, university counseling center, or larger agency with structure, clear policies, and stable pay. Client B might prefer private practice, consulting, program development, training, or a role with more creative control. Neither set of values is better. They simply point towards different environments. This matters because clients often shame themselves when a job should be a good fit but feels bad. Sometimes the issue is not with the profession, sometimes it's the setting. So common work values measures include SUPER's Work Values Inventory Revised, the Minnesota Importance Questionnaire, and ONET Work Importance Locator, and I think your text mentioned a few others. So the ONET tools are worth knowing because they are free, current, and accessible, and constantly being updated. The ONET interest profile can help users connect interests and work experience levels to occupations, and ONET includes information on hundreds of occupations, including skills, knowledge, work activities, education, wages, and outlook. That kind of information matters because counseling should not happen in a fantasy version of the labor market. When clients are making career decisions, they often need accurate information about training requirements, salary, working conditions, job, outlook, licensing, physical demands, and advancement. It's not enough to say, follow your passion. That can become terrible advice if we ignore money, caregiving, disability, transportation, discrimination, immigration status, debt, or local job availability. A better counseling stance is, let's look at what matters to you, what strengths you bring, and what barriers exist, and what options are realistic enough to explore. We'll just take a look at what ONET says about mental health counselors, just so that you can get an idea of what these might look like. So here's a summary with some context. 5 out of 28 are displayed. You can expand that just to see all of them. You can also find other occupations that might be related. So like maybe you decide that you really like this gather information about community mental health needs, but you don't like the idea of monitoring clients' use of medications. So you can kind of look at, okay, well, what other career fields might have this one in here? And there's work activities. So assisting and caring for others, working with computers, as I just accidentally scrolled too fast. Detailed work activities, maintain client records, maintain information. There's 34 of these, so you can get really thorough in what you're looking at here. We're also looking at work context. So do we have the ability to look at email every day? Do we have the ability to have face-to-face discussions? Do we have the ability to stay indoors all the time? If you're an outside person, maybe inside private practice, counseling might not be for you. Job zone, education, related experience. Those are all really good. And then you can put in something that will tell you what you need to complete the job, your interests. So here's that RIASEC. It's going to be social and investigative. Work styles. If this sounds like you, then you're in the right place. Here's all 10. Wages. This seems fairly accurate. Let's look at my zip code where I live in the north side of Pittsburgh. So yeah, here's the high end, here's the low end. So once you graduate, if you live in Pittsburgh, you could probably expect a salary around this. Pennsylvania as a whole is slightly lower. The United States is, pretty good. The high end is a little high. So remember how we were talking about that bell curve stuff before? Here's some great examples of bell curves. Most of what you're going to get as far as a salary is going to be kind of in the middle here. But there are some people who make this much all the way at the end over here, but it's a lot fewer. There are also some people who make the low end. More than likely, you're going to live in this place, probably once you're independently licensed, so with an LPC in Pennsylvania. But it really does just kind of break it down for you quite a bit, especially about, look, Allentown, they're going to make more than Pittsburgh, which is great. Erie, not so great. Lancaster, really not good at all. But closer to New York, New Jersey, that's where they start making a little bit more money, which makes a lot of sense. So all of this is really useful information on ONET. We could also look for job openings just to see how likely is it that we could even get a job in this field, which is highly likely. Related occupations are right here. professional associations. This is great information to help people get connected, or even if you're not familiar with these ones, you can help get yourself connected. Here's all 13. Brain Injury Association of America. I didn't even know that one existed. But yeah, so this is what ONET looks like. That's just the first tab. There's other tabs at the top. Details. If you have a veteran, you can even switch it so that they can see what it might look like specifically for veterans. I like this little word cloud here. I don't know, this looks like way more fun to look at too. Personality can also be used in career assessment, but carefully. Personality inventories may help clients consider work style, communication, patterns, leadership preferences, stress responses, and emotional fit. For example, some clients may prefer collaborative environments, others may do better with independent work. Some clients enjoy novelty and rapid change, others prefer routine and predictability. Some clients are energized by frequent social interaction, others can do social work but need quiet recovery time afterward. This can be helpful, but we need to avoid simplistic conclusions like introverts should work alone or extroverts should be in sales. That's too shallow. An introverted person may be an excellent therapist, teacher, pastor, attorney, or physician. They may simply need a work rhythm that includes privacy and recovery. An extroverted person may enjoy data analysis, writing, or research if the work connects to collaboration or public-facing projects. Personality results are best used to help clients reflect on fit, not to shrink their options. So let's talk about abilities and skills. An ability is a current capacity to perform a task. It may involve verbal reasoning, numerical ability, spatial reasoning, mechanical reasoning, clerical speed, motor coordination, or problem solving. A skill is usually developed through education, training, work, practice, or life experience. This distinction matters because clients often underestimate their skills. A stay-at-home parent returning to the workforce may say, I haven't worked in years, but they may have developed planning, budgeting, conflict management, advocacy, scheduling, crisis response, teaching, emotional labor, and logistical skills. A person in recovery may have developed resilience, self-monitoring, community building, honesty, emotional regulation, peer support, and persistence. A client who's worked in food service may have skills in time management, stress tolerance, teamwork, customer service, conflict de-escalation, multitasking, and reading people quickly. Part of career counseling is helping clients translate lived experience into career language. So common instruments in this area include the Career Availability Placement Survey, ASVAB, differential aptitude tests, general aptitude test battery, Cooter skills assessments, and Ability Explorer. And the ASVAB is probably one of the best known examples because it's used in military contexts. It assesses strengths across areas such as arithmetic reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, mathematics knowledge, mechanical comprehension, electronics information, and more. And results can inform military occupational placement. This helps give us a useful point. Ability assessments often have higher stakes than interest inventories. If a client takes a career interest quiz online and uses it for reflection, the risk is usually lower. If an ability test is used for selection, placement, military assignment, employment, or access to training, the ethical and legal stakes rise. That means that we care about standardization, fairness, accommodations, validity, and whether the test is appropriate for the decision being made. And career assessment can also include career development and readiness measures. These tools look at career maturity, decision-making readiness, career beliefs, barriers, self-efficacy, and knowledge about the world of work. Sometimes the problem is not that the client lacks interests. The problem may be that they feel overwhelmed, afraid, uninformed, unsupported, or stuck. This is where Donald's super quote becomes useful. In choosing an occupation, one is, in effect, choosing a means of implementing a self-concept. In other words, career decisions are rarely just practical decisions. They are also connected to how people understand themselves, what they might imagine for themselves, and what kind of life feels possible or acceptable. So for example, a college student might say, I have no idea what I want to do. But after exploration, we may learn that they do have ideas. They're afraid of disappointing their family, they're afraid of debt, they're afraid of choosing wrong. Or maybe they're afraid that they're not capable of becoming the kind of person that the career seems to require. Another client may have strong interests and skills, but lack information about how to enter the field. Another client may know exactly what they want, but face barriers like transportation, childcare, documentation status, disability-related needs, discrimination, or lack of professional networks. So we have to assess readiness and barriers, not only preferences. Career development assessment helps us to ask, is the client ready to make a decision? Do they have enough information? Do they believe they're capable? Are they choosing from fear, pressure, survival, or genuine fit? and what barriers may need to be addressed before a career plan can become realistic. Combined assessment systems bring several types of information together. They may include interest, skills, values, abilities, educational planning, occupational information, and career exploration activities. Examples include systems like Cooter, COPS, CAPS, COPES, and Discover, and other career planning platforms. And the benefit of combined systems is that they can give a broader view. Instead of only saying, here are your interests, they can help clients compare interests, skills, values, and possible occupations. And the risk is that clients may treat the output as more authoritative than it deserves. When a computer-generated report says, here's your top 10 careers, clients may assume that the system knows them better than they know themselves. It does not. This system knows their responses. The counselor helps explore meaning, context, readiness, and fit. A report can organize information, but the counseling relationship also helps the client decide on what the information means for who they are and who they are becoming. So the interview is one of the most important parts of career assessment. A career inventory may show that a client has strong social interests, but the interview tells us whether that means counseling, teaching, nursing, ministry, community organizing, coaching, human resources, customer support, or something else entirely. In a career interview, we might ask, tell me about your work history. What jobs have you liked even a little? And what jobs have drained you? What parts of school or work have come naturally to you? And what kinds of tasks do you avoid? What do people come to you for? What do you enjoy doing before you started worrying about being so practical? And this last question is one of my favorites. What would make work sustainable for you? Because some clients are not looking for a dream job. They're looking for work that they can do without losing themselves. So one structured interview approach is the career construction interview. This approach looks at life themes, role models, favorite stories, early memories, mottos, preferred magazines or media, and the meaning that clients make from their own narratives. The idea is that people often reveal career themes through the stories that they're drawn to. For example, if somebody has always admired characters who fight for the underdog, create beauty from chaos, solve mysteries, build safe homes, lead teams, or expose corruption, that tells us something. It may not tell us a job title, but it gives us a theme. So let's use Abbott Elementary. Janine's career story is not only teacher. It includes optimism, service, community, persistence, and a belief that systems could be better. Ava's career story is different. She may be in the same school, but her motive, style, strength, and growth edges are not the same. Career construction helps us ask, what story is the client trying to live through work? And that can be powerful, especially when clients feel lost. So let's shift into employment assessment. Employment assessment is used by organizations for hiring, promotion, placement, selection, and personnel decisions. Common methods include structured interviews, job knowledge tests, work samples, cognitive ability tests, and again, the list goes on. The ethical question is always, is the assessment appropriate for the decision being made? A test used for employment should be job-related. It should measure something relevant to the role, and it should be administered consistently. It should not unfairly disadvantage protected groups. It should allow reasonable accommodations when appropriate. The interpretation should be tied to the actual job requirements. For example, if a job requires lifting heavy material safety, a physical ability assessment may be relevant. If a job is remote data entry, requiring a physical agility test would make no sense. If a job requires written communication, a writing sample may be relevant. If the writing sample is scored subjectively with no rubric, that creates problems. Employment assessment can be useful, but it can also be misused quickly. Job analysis is the foundation of ethical employment assessment. Job analysis means studying the actual job to identify tasks, responsibilities, knowledge, skills, abilities, and conditions required. Without job analysis, employment testing can become random. Imagine hiring a receptionist and deciding to use a personality test because the manager likes people who are outgoing. That's not enough. What does the job actually require? Greeting clients, managing confidential information, handling distressed callers, scheduling, insurance verification, de-escalation, accuracy, sitting for long periods, multitasking. The assessment should match the job. In counseling language, job analysis is like the assessment before treatment planning. You need to understand the presenting concern before deciding what tool to use. So think of an assessment center like a job tryout. Instead of only asking, are you good at this job? The employer says, show me how you would handle parts of this job. It does not always mean a building called an assessment center. It usually means a planned set of activities where applicants complete tasks that look like the actual work. So some examples might be role plays where the applicant acts out a job situation, or a presentation where the applicant's giving a short talk, or what's called an in-basket exercise, where the applicant gets a fake pile of work and has to decide what to do first. There's case analysis, where the applicant reads a case and explains what they would do. There's group problem-solving tasks, where several applicants work together to solve a problem. Writing samples, which we talked a little bit about already, and a leadership simulation, where the applicant handles a pretend leadership issue. So the assessment center is basically, don't just tell us that you can do the job, show us how you would do the job. And a work sample is one piece of that. It's a real or pretend task from the job. So for a clinical supervisor role, instead of asking, are you a good supervisor? A stronger assessment would ask the person to read this mock case note, identify concerns, decide what needs follow-up, and explain how you would talk to the supervisee. That gives much better information. These activities can be helpful, but only if they are fair. And that means everybody should get similar instructions, enough time, and the same scoring system, trained reviewers, and reasonable accommodations when needed. Because otherwise, the employer may not be measuring who can do the job. They may be measuring who interviews well, who talks like the people already in power, or who knows the hidden rules. So looking at AI and employment assessment, this is one of the areas where I think our textbook needs a little update. Employment assessment is affected by technology and artificial intelligence. Organizations may use AI or algorithmic tools to screen resumes, rank applicants, analyze video interviews, score written responses, recommend candidates, or predict job fit. And that may sound efficient, but efficiency is not the same as fairness. AI tools can reproduce bias if they're trained on biased data, or if the criteria being measured are not truly job-related. For example, if a hiring algorithm is trained on past employees from a company that historically hired mostly one demographic group, the system may learn patterns that reflect past exclusion rather than actual job success. There are also concerns about disability discrimination. Some tools may disadvantage people with speech differences, facial differences, neurodivergence, anxiety, limited access to technology, or cultural communication styles. The counselor takeaway is this: technology does not remove ethical responsibility. If an assessment affects a person's employment opportunities, we still need to ask, what is being measured? Is it job-related? Has it been validated? Who might be disadvantaged? Are accommodations available? And can a person appeal or request a human review? AI may be fairly new, but the ethical principles are familiar: validity, fairness, informed use, and harm reduction. So let's pause here for a pop culture story. Before Mike Myers became Mike Myers, before Wayne's World, before Austin Powers, before Shrek became a Scottish ogre with emotional depth, he was a kid trying to figure out where he would fit. He's talked about taking an aptitude test when he was young, and the results pointed towards a creative, performance-based path. In hindsight, that feels almost cinematic. The kid takes a test, and the results say something. You may be suited for performance or creative work, and then years later, he becomes an actor, comedian, writer, and one of the most recognizable comedy voices of his generation. And it's a great story. But we have to be careful with the lesson. The lesson is not that aptitude tests can predict destiny. That would be giving the test way too much power. The better lesson is that assessments can sometimes give language to something a person already senses but can't quite name yet. Maybe the test didn't discover Mike Myers. Maybe it reflected something that was already there: timing, humor, imagination, performance energy, verbal ability, and a pull towards entertaining people. The assessment may have acted like a little flashlight. It did not build the whole road, but it lit up one possible direction. That's how we want to think about career assessment with clients. Sometimes an assessment helps a client say, oh, that makes sense. I've always been drawn to that. And sometimes it gives permission to consider a path that they thought was unrealistic. Sometimes it opens a door. But career paths are rarely clean lines. People build careers through interest, ability, and yes, also through chance, relationships, money, family responsibilities, geography, access, privilege, failure, persistence, health, caregiving, and timing. So when a client receives career assessment results, we do not say, this is who you are. We say, let's look at what this brings forward, because the result is not the story. It's one clue in the story. Career assessment must be culturally responsive. That means we consider language, reading level, disability, access to technology, socioeconomic background, immigration status, gender roles, family expectations, religious or spiritual values, community responsibilities, and labor market access. This matters because career decisions are not made in a vacuum. For some clients, career choice may feel very individual. What do I want? What am I good at? What kind of life do I want to build? For other clients, career choice may feel connected to family, culture, survival, community, safety, and responsibility. Some clients may be expected to choose a stable career that helps support relatives. Some may feel pressure to pursue prestige, even if that path does not fit them. Some may be discouraged from fields seen as inappropriate for their gender. Some may have limited exposure to higher education, professional networks, or people who could show them how certain careers actually work. Other clients may be navigating racism, ableism, transphobia, ageism, classism, immigration related barriers, or criminal record stigma in employment. So when Michelle Obama said, success isn't about how much money you make, it's about the difference you make in people's lives, she gave us a useful reminder. Career meaning is not one size fits all. For a client, success may mean financial stability and benefits. For another, it may mean serving their community. For another, it could mean autonomy, safety, creativity, family flexibility, or work that does not harm their mental health. Our job is not to impose one definition of success. Our job is to help clients clarify what success means in the context of their real life. And this is where career assessment becomes social justice work. When we help clients access information, name barriers, explore options, and advocate for themselves, we're doing more than helping them pick a job. A school counselor may use career assessment to help students see options beyond what their immediate environment has shown them. A rehabilitation counselor may use career and work-related assessment to support meaningful employment for a person with a disability. A counselor working with clients in recovery may help a client explore work that supports structure, dignity, and relapse prevention. So if we ignore these realities, career counseling can start to sound like a Pinterest board. Just dream big and manifest. That's not counseling. That is nonsense with a nice font. Good career counseling supports agency while respecting context. We can help clients imagine possibilities and still be honest about barriers. We can support hope without pretending systems are fair. Career assessment is not only about matching people to jobs. It can also be about expanding access, strengthening choice, and helping clients build lives with more clarity, support, and dignity. So when giving career assessment feedback, use plain language. Don't overwhelm clients with codes, scales, percentiles, or occupational lists. Start with the client's reaction. You might say, as you look at these results, what stands out? What feels accurate? What feels off? What feels exciting? What feels disappointing? What careers are you relieved to see? What careers are you annoyed to see? And what do these results miss about you? And that last question is really important. Assessment results are incomplete. The client gets to respond to them. Then connect results to action. Would it be helpful to research 3 of these occupations? Would you be open to interviewing somebody in this field? What would you need to learn before deciding whether this is worth exploring? What's one low-risk step that you could take this week? Feedback should turn information into reflection and reflection into movement. So bringing it all together, the biggest takeaway here is that career assessment is a process, not a one-time test. Interest inventories can help clients explore what they enjoy, but interest does not automatically equal skill, access, training, stamina, or job fit. Work values help us understand satisfaction, burnout, and environment fit. Sometimes a client does not need a brand new career. Sometimes they need a different setting, different schedule, different boundaries, different supervisor, or work that lines up more honestly with what they value. Abilities and skills assessment help identify strengths, potential, and training needs. They can also help clients see skills that they may have overlooked, especially skills developed through caregiving, recovery, service work, education, survival, or informal leadership. Career interviews add context and meaning. They help us understand the person behind the score, including family expectations, barriers, responsibilities, previous work expectations, fears, hopes, and what kind of work may actually be sustainable. Employment assessments have to be handled carefully. If an assessment is being used for hiring, placement, promotion, or access to opportunity, it must be job-related, fair, valid, and legally defensible. And as we talked about with AI, technology does not erase ethical responsibility. A tool can be fast and still biased. It can look objective and still reproduce harm. So we always want to come back to the same questions. What is being measured? What is valid? Is it fair? Who might be disadvantaged? And what safeguards are in place? Culture and social context also shape career options, career beliefs, and assessment interpretation. Clients are not making career decisions in an empty space. They're making them inside families, communities, systems, financial realities, cultural expectations, discrimination, access barriers, and real labor markets. Most importantly, career assessment should support client agency. It should never be used to tell clients who they are allowed to become. Many clients feel pressure to find the perfect job, pick the perfect major, or identify their life's purpose as if there is one correct answer hidden somewhere inside an assessment report. And that pressure can be paralyzing. As counselors, we can help clients relate to career assessment differently. Instead of treating results like a final answer, we can use them as a mirror, a map, a conversation, and sometimes a gentle nudge. The best career assessment work helps clients ask, What matters to me? What am I good at? What do I want to learn? What environments help me function? What barriers need to be addressed? And what options are available? That's the heart of career and employment assessment, not prediction, not labeling, not sorting. It's reflection, information, context, and movement.